Hello and welcome. The goal of this podcast is to get listeners connected with others in the sports industry because they say it's all about who you know, and now you know us.
Well, hello and welcome, Constant Sports Podcast listeners. Today we're joined by John Campione. Thanks for joining us today, John.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Connor. It's much appreciated. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So we're going to kind of dive in a little bit here. So John's been, an academic advisor, admissions counselor. He's worked in a number of director of admissions roles. He's got an extensive background, and we were talking off air a little bit. And he's a big sports business fan, the industry. So we're happy to have him today and give us kind of maybe some insider tips and tricks on how to get into school and some things to help your information stand out and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. The sport business program at Temple, it's fantastic. I'm an alum of Temple University. I got my undergrad degree in education from the school and have been aware of the sport business program for quite some time now. It's one of the most unique and committed and well diversified programs that the university has to offer.
Yep, no, that's why we reached out. We saw some of the great things that the alum have done and the different professors. So we're excited to dive into that today. And just touching on that, could you give kind of the viewers and listeners just a background, a history of the program, how long it's been around, kind of stuff like that?
Yeah, sure. So the sport business program is in the School of Sport Tourism and Hospitality Management, or STHM, as is most commonly referred to at Temple.
Mhm.
And the school was founded as a separate college in the mid to late 90s. Um, but the commitment and mission of the school was to make sure that there was a heavy emphasis on experiential learning experiences, and then with sport business, taking advantage of the fact that we are in such a rich sports oriented environment in the Philadelphia metropolitan area. I'm not since this school was founded, but in the past, what about 12 or so years now, Philly has been one of about only 7 or 8 cities in the country that is fortunate enough to have all five major sports organizations. And Temple and the sport business program is lucky enough to have connections, which all of these program with all of these organizations, and that's really allowed the program throughout its last 20 years to hone in on diversifying the learning experience and making sure that students get that hands-on touch point while they're in the program. And since then, students have gone on, and I can explain it more later, but students have gone on to work for all five professional sports organizations in the city. And it really created a unique environment for the student population.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I always love, this. There's only, like you said, only so many cities where they have, all the major sports leagues, all the, big teams coming in. So that's awesome that the program's, is right in the heart of that. And is that one of kind of the selling points as you're going forward to the students? Is that a lot of the reason why they come there is for that, aspect?
Yeah, definitely, definitely, right. If you're working in sport business, you're studying, excuse me, you're studying sport business
Mhm.
or anything of the like, typically you are interested in a sport. And it's very easy to sell Philly in that regard that given the fact, oh, basketball is your favorite sport. Well, we have the Sixers. And at least,
Yeah.
we always have a student who is working for them in some regard, or excuse me, have
Mhm.
had it before. Eagles, football, Phillies, baseball, soccer, union. And so it makes it very easy to guide conversations in that regard. For example, if a student is interested in sport analytics, I could have a conversation with them that we've had students intern with the Philadelphia Union's analytics department. And so
Yep.
then you can kind of take that conversation from there. So it is a very easy selling point. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I imagine kind of touched on the selling point a little bit. What is, maybe some of talking to alum and, yourself, what's kind of the favorite aspect of the program itself?
Yeah, sure. So favorite aspects of the program, besides the fact that it is very hands-on, I have always been I've been a fan of the fact that the program it is very community oriented, and that's
Mhm.
been its mission, as I said, since its foundation. And the program there are about 90 students in it, and it's very, very hands-on. It's very personalized, and the curriculum is built in that your short and long-term goals are taken into account. So there are advisors and there are other faculty and staff members even who are going to work with you throughout the entire time during the program to make sure that it is your own experience. You are a member of the sport business program or you're a student in it, and you are not just a number, but rather you are your
Yeah.
own individual with very specific goals. And there are people whose job it is to get you from point A to point B.
Yeah. And just kind of touching on that, I just had a follow up. How do you think the professors, the admin, yourself, how do you cultivate such a community based like program and feeling a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I think the best way to create that, right, is I think for one, there are so many opportunities for students to network
Hmm.
with faculty members and with members of the industry. There is the Center for Industry Engagement, or CIE, within the program, and
Okay.
students can use that to gain connections to the industry. There are programming services offered by faculty members, right? And I think that kind of starts to bridge the gap where students can start to have more conversations with faculty members
Yep.
beyond just their regular scheduled class hours. I think that's
Mhm.
when you really start to get into those deeper conversations about goal setting. And then, you happen to be a part of a seminar from a guest speaker or from a faculty member, and then you get to talk to them about your own personal journey, and who knows
Okay.
what can go from there. But I think
Yep.
that's a great way that it's achieved.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's wonderful, and I think that's just in general building that community, and if it's business, sports related, just really anything. The community is such an important part of cultivating that in any industry, really. So that's awesome that the program's doing such great things there. And then
Yeah.
regarding kind of the program itself, could you give the viewers and listeners a little bit information about the class structure, how long it takes to complete the program, kind of that type of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So, just to give a general overview of the program, the sport business program at Temple is, and I really want to stress, it is taught in a flexible format. So, beyond the fact that it is personalized, it is flexible in that it can be completed part-time or full-time, and you can complete the courses online or in person or with a hybrid format, contingent on your interests, location, and what it is exactly you're looking to do. Um, the flexible format allows students then to take classes throughout the week, specifically at night. So we're talking normally like 5:30 to 8 or so. Um, and then the flexible format as well with the sport business program, there are four concentrations that I want to highlight. So we have sports analytics, recreation and event management, sports marketing and promotions, and athletic administration. And
Mhm.
these concentrations all have their own required courses, but you can also elect to just take a breadth of coursework within all of the concentrations and not necessarily declare one, or take a few classes in one and a few in another.
Kind of mix and
Um,
match.
you can double dip, if
Hmm.
your job is a little bit of operations, but also you do a bit of marketing work, well,
Yep.
we can help you there. The fifth option that we have is our dual degree option with Real Madrid University in Europe. And that is where students can earn their sport business degree, but also getting an MBA from Real Madrid. That one is the only one that's very structured, and that your
Right.
courses are pretty much outlined for you semester by semester, where you're with one institution one semester, another institution the next. And you
Yeah.
can't really elect to take another concentration or such because you are already elected into two different programs. But the flexibility is very, very strong in the program overall, and how it's designed.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love the flexibility, and that's awesome that the students can kind of, as you said, double dip, little here, little there, and kind of be flexible. And as you've heard, maybe some feedback from students, is there like a class or a crowd favorite class, or is there a class that like has a lot of hype? Anything?
Yeah, definitely. So I think first the sports analytics final portfolio Sports analytics is one of the more popular concentrations, and the final portfolio allows students to really just create this culmination of all of the work that they've done. It's their last concentration class, and you are working alongside an expert faculty member, and you're going to be taking this portfolio with you when applying for jobs.
Right.
There's been a tremendous success rate with that, where students have been able to land a job following graduation using said portfolio with the work that they got to do in this last class. That's a huge hit. And I think it goes back to that hands-on learning, and you're working directly with somebody who is an expert in the field
Yeah.
that you are really diving into and breaking into. I think specifically another class is a class, it's sponsorship and sales. And essentially, what you can do is learn more about ticket sales and how the sales approach works for all sports organizations. And you can actually participate in a bit of it's a group project where you do ticket sales for a Phillies game. And then everyone actually gets to attend said game, which is really cool. And last year, I believe there were like 800 or so tickets sold.
Wow.
So a good chunk. So again, hands-on experience,
Mhm.
getting a bit of that like competitive edge, because if you've ever played a sport, you have probably a bit of that competitive edge in you. You get to do that with us. So it's a very fun group project that course offers. But I think those are some noteworthy ones.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate that. And I love the grad school is awesome because it's like you're taking classes that you actually, enjoy. It's not like like a biology 200 class, but then also like the real world applications and, kind of getting out there in the actual industry and working. So that Phillies, project there sounds super cool. And, that just stuff is super awesome for prospective students looking to go into, a program like this, is where you can kind of get your hands dirty and get that experience, and you can possibly even put that type of stuff on your resume.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And that's the best part, right? All of these experiences make you more marketable as an employee.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, you are getting a degree so you can make yourself the most marketable, competitive
Mhm.
applicant, candidate, and employee that you are for your role. And I think the program does such a great job of not only teaching you theory, but practical based knowledge that you will be
Yep.
using day to day in whatever role you choose.
Mhm. Yeah, that's important. And so we talked a little about the class. So now, can you give us a little bit of background on the professors? Some if they're like adjunct professors, if they're working in sports and they come teach at night, or is it like full time? Let's kind of dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, so our professors and faculty members, so we do have full-time faculty members, and we have faculty members who are they all kind of do things in their own field. And that's
Mhm.
how we're able to teach classes at night. And
Right.
faculty members, I wanted to actually make this point at some points, and this is perfect. Temple's actually one of the most commonly published research. The sports business department is one of the most commonly published departments for academic journals with our faculty members. We've had a few, particularly in the fields of sports marketing, such as like NIL. There's been
Mhm.
a lot of research published from some of our faculty members who are not just teaching, but they're doing actual things in the field. And I think that blends itself very well ultimately to having that expert day-to-day experience and then coming and teaching at night.
Definitely. Yeah, I know. And like I was saying before, I went to the ASU program, and I think that as graduate school separates, kind of as I alluded to, previously, graduates separates itself from like an undergrad because your teachers are like, I feel like a little bit more, in the industry. They're not just like a math teacher and then they teach math, but they're like, they're like a GM or they were a vice president, and they have like all these, experiences they can share to the students. So the fact that the Temple program has that, I think is, a huge benefit for the
Hmm.
students looking into the program.
Definitely. Yeah.
And then, so talking about the students now a little bit more, we talked about it earlier, just like the alumni. Could you kind of give the listeners, viewers here, maybe some teams, jobs that they kind of after they've graduated from this program where they've kind of ended up?
Yeah, definitely. So of course, students have been fortunate enough to land jobs pretty much all across
Hmm.
the entire range of the sports industry and with the professional sports teams in Philly. So we're talking Phillies, Eagles, Sixers, Union, um, as well as professional sports teams in New York, DC, Florida, even Texas and California. Uh,
Oh, wow.
and
Okay.
then students have also landed roles with the commissioner's office for NFL, as well as some of the head offices of Major League Baseball. Um, a lot of times, students want to break into front office roles for the NFL or MLB, and we have been very fortunate enough to have our students land those careers. Um, Students also will work in universities and working in
Mhm.
collegiate athletics. Um, Students will work in not just at a university's athletics department, but may actually represent and work for the NCAA. Um, there is uh, there is actually a year-long contracted role that the NCAA has for students more in athletic administration. And Temple has been fortunate enough to have students be accepted into this very competitive, nationally known year-long athletic administration entry-level role that really gets their foot in their door with the NCAA. Students have also worked in compliance at numerous universities and then have done operations and recruiting for various schools. And then even sports apparel companies. This is
Yeah.
extremely popular. Students will want to work for Nike or Adidas, Under Armour. We've
Mhm.
had students work, um, particularly maybe in the in sports marketing side. And then the Philadelphia Sports and Recreation Department, that's namely another important one for recreation and event management. We'll have students work with the city and we'll have them also work with local nonprofit organizations that may work with underprivileged students in the greater Philadelphia area and helping to provide them with athletic programming. Um, so I think those are some very noteworthy
Yeah.
opportunities that students have had post grad.
No. Yeah, of course. That's great and fantastic. So, and I think a lot of the times when people think of like, oh, I want to work at sports, do like an NFL team or an NBA team, but sports is such like a broad, scope that there's so many things that you could do to still work in sports. Like you said, there's like Nike, there's people that have to make the jerseys, there's people who have to sell. Like there's so many jobs in sport in and of itself that getting a degree like this, you can really go to so many places. Like your opportunities are endless, I think.
It is endless, exactly. I think, with a sport business degree, you're looking to work in the realm of sports, and a lot of times you first think of working for a professional sports organization, but
Mhm. Of
and while you still can, and while that is
course.
fantastic if you do, what's also great about it is that this program, especially, and with all the connections that the program has, you learn, as I was just mentioning, that there are a plethora of opportunities outside of
Mhm.
organizations that may be more of what you're looking for. Um, for example, there is it's a very niche um, company. It's a recruiting agency for sports business professionals
Mhm.
that could be something that you're interested in that you may just not be aware of at first, and
Right.
that you would
Mhm.
learn of while you're in the program, um, or working, in more of the compliance side and seeing things more in the back end of athletic administration. I think there's so many opportunities that you may not be aware of at first that when you're in the program and you learn about it, it could really be an eye-opening, great experience.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Yeah. I agree 100% there. And then as to kind of, go start over a little bit, but when the students
Mhm.
are applying to the program, are there certain things, I guess, that, can make a prospective student's, application stand out, or are there certain things you and the team look for?
Yeah, definitely. So first and foremost, when a student is applying to the sport business program, there is not a requirement in regard to experience in the sport business industry or a
Mhm.
degree in sports business, sports management, whatever the case may be.
Right.
To get into the sport business program, really the thing that I look for and that the admissions committee is looking for is really a passion and understanding and interest and having goals and understanding it. What are you looking to achieve if you are obtaining a sport business degree? Ultimately, it
Right.
is an investment for both
Mhm.
sides. So you want to make sure that it is a worthwhile investment and that you have an idea or an understanding of, it doesn't need to be a specific role, but
Mhm.
you have taken the time to get an understanding of what the sport business industry is, what opportunities are out there, and maybe a general idea of a path you may want to follow. Articulating that in a statement of goals is always extremely important.
Mhm.
The more specific, the better.
Right.
Having experiences listed on your resume is always great. Of course, it's not required, as I mentioned, but if you have those experiences, you want to make sure you list them. Um, yeah, and then I think ultimately making sure that again everything is just there is a clear understanding of what it is you are looking to achieve. Even if you are a career changer, why are you changing careers?
Mhm.
Really being as transparent as possible can only help you in this regard.
Got it. Understood. And then regarding kind of the process, is it like an essay? Are there kind of video attachments? Like
Yeah,
a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a very straightforward application process. So just to outline it all, so there's an application that students will complete on our website, and
Hmm.
from there, we require essentially all transcripts, letters of recommendation. We will
Right.
require the resume, as I mentioned, a statement of goals. So we'll just only require
Hmm.
an essay, and that statement of goals is essentially what are your short and long term goals, and how do you hope that the sport business program will achieve them for you? Or um, and then standardized testing. I always want to
Hmm.
make sure I emphasize that because it's always asked. Um, we don't require it for students to be admitted into the program, and so ultimately we're going to be looking at you just beyond the number, but really taking a holistic approach with that
Hmm.
application.
Okay. Awesome. And then the standardized testing is you're referring to like the GRE or the GMAT, that type of stuff.
Yes, correct.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And now would that I've always thought this is that say like a student does complete that and then put that in, does that give any more any less I guess like benefit to their application, or is it still just it's more like you said the holistic, it's all of it, it's not just like that.
It's ultimately going to be holistic.
Hmm.
However, if a student were to take the GRE or GMAT, they score they have a certain score that they are
Right.
proud of that
Hmm.
may lend itself um, to being in a higher average or range, then that's always good for us to see, of course, because then we get a better
Right.
understanding of their academic capabilities. Sure.
Hmm.
But it's ultimately not going to strongly influence one way or the other. Another big part of the process is the admissions interview that
Hmm.
we will conduct with all qualified applicants. And so
Okay.
that is normally about a half hour conversation where it is really understanding the applicant holistically with their background, with their goals, with any experiences and achievements that they've had, and how they are as a potential student in the program. That is really what is most important when it comes down to it.
Got it. And is that more like a I guess like a second round, third round type of process, the interview?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. It's the second final round. So the student will apply, we'll do the initial review to make sure they qualify for the program, and then we reach out and
Hmm.
invite them to essentially what we're doing right now is
Yep.
half hour video Zoom call.
Right. Okay. Understood. And then kind of touching on that a little bit, the interview. Um, I've had I've gone back and forth on this, but how much should the interviewee like know about? So like say like I'm talking to you like this, like do I want to
Mhm.
know like, oh, John worked here, he did this, and then like bringing that up, or is that Like, is there a line where it's like, this guy knows a little bit too much about like my background, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. I will say it's quite funny, right? Ever since I started working in this role, my LinkedIn
Uh,
views have gone up
yeah,
considerably.
Sky,
Like
right?
it's been quite high. And I worked in undergraduate admissions for about 4 years prior to this, and that was never a factor. Now it is in graduate admission. Um, but um, yeah, I think it's I don't want to knowing me is good, sure, but
Right.
knowing the program and having an understanding of the
Yep.
program uh will ultimately, I don't want to say look better, but
Hmm.
knowing you have an understanding of what the sport business program at Temple has, that will be more impressive ultimately. Showing that you have
Yep.
done research as an applicant, showing that you have taken the time to peruse the website. Maybe you have researched what our faculty do. Maybe you have looked
Hmm.
into career outlooks in the program. If you know those things going into the interview, that is a sign of commitment that shows
Yep.
a high level of interest. Um, Doing research in me is good too, of course, but ultimately, it's not going to make much of a difference at the end of the
Yep.
day, whereas researching the program could.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I'm with you. And I think that even goes, with all the first, future interviews. You got to know the business, the company, know kind of their mission statement, their values, because you don't want to go into an interview and be like, I like sports. Well, everyone likes, everyone in this likes sports.
Yeah,
So that's not going to make you stand out in an interview.
exactly. And I think, to say like, oh, I want to get into the sport business industry, I researched sport business programs online. I found Temple, and
Hmm.
I saw that yours is ranked this.
Hmm.
That's great. But beyond that, what have you learned? Have
Right.
you looked into course content? Have, like I
Hmm.
mentioned, faculty really diving deep into it is what matters. And I
Yeah.
think, yeah, like going in and just understanding like that, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm with you. And then, as kind of the students, everyone takes, this program and kind of goes forward. Are there certain goals or things that the program has for the future with admissions, with just kind of anything like future goals for the program?
Yeah, I think generally speaking, the biggest goal for the program, and this is a general answer, but I think it is
Hmm.
a very important one, in that is that Temple Sport Business Program is known for staying very up to date in trends in the sport business industry and what is currently happening in the market. And I think that is reflected in the program. And I think the goal and the mission of the program is to stay as up to date in course
Yep.
content, reevaluating it, and reflecting on it as needed. That in of itself is probably the biggest goal that the program has right now that I could offer.
Perfect. Yeah, that's awesome. I love to hear that and talking to different programs. So it's so beneficial. And then, we appreciate you coming on today and talking. So we'll kind of close here with like a little no huddle. I'll just ask you some short questions just so the viewers can kind of get a little bit more info about you. And then
Sure.
after I ask these 4 or 5 questions, I'll just kind of the floor is yours. And if you want to plug any of the social medias, the websites, any events coming up, then the floor is yours after the next few questions. So we'll just dive in here. If you could choose a favorite course in a program, which one would you choose?
If I could choose a favorite course, oh boy, the sport analytics final culmination, as I mentioned earlier. I am a
Mhm.
data nerd on the side. I love fantasy sports, baseball in particular, and I've always been a sabermetrics nerd. If
Okay.
I wasn't doing what I am right now, I'd probably be working in sport analytics. And I think being able to create a portfolio of your hands-on data-driven work, I
Right.
don't think there's much cooler than that personally. So that's probably my favorite course in the program.
Good. And then, kind of on that same line, what's your favorite book that you've either read or are you reading now?
Oh boy, yeah. So I mean, of course, basic book series, Game of Thrones, anything
Hmm.
related to GOT, World of Ice and Fire is amazing. Dune, read that when the movie came out. That's awesome. Pretty niche, but I recently got into manga. In particular, there's this artist named Junji Ito, who does like a lot of
Okay.
horror-based manga, and that's pretty cool. He has a lot of work that I've been diving into recently.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll have to take a look into some of that stuff. And we appreciate you coming on today. So I'll just kind of the floor is yours.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, appreciate it. Well, it's been a pleasure to have me on the podcast today. And so, if anyone is ever interested in learning more about the sport business program at Temple University, or want to have a conversation with me about an application, Temple University, anything of the like, they can reach out to me best at Jonathan Campione. And so it's going to be Jonathan Campione at temple.edu. And so if you just Google Temple Sport Business, you can easily find us and my contact information on there. That is the best way to reach me for anything related to the program, or if you want to learn more about Temple. And then from there, I'm always willing to have a conversation with students, um, talk about anything really. As I mentioned, I'm an alum of the university. And so I can speak both from an employee perspective, but also as an alum and somebody who has lived in Philadelphia for 10 years now. So I look forward to any and all conversations regarding this program. And again, I definitely appreciate you having me on today, Connor. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And then we'll link, we'll put your information in there, and we send out a newsletter each week to the listeners. So we'll put all the information regarding the Temple program in there for the listeners
Cool.
there. So hopefully we can connect, you with some future students. And then if you have other students or alumni that want to get connected with us, we'd love to talk to them and maybe get them on the podcast as well. So we appreciate you stopping by today, and we're
Yeah,
looking forward to watch the program grow and see the alumni that the program produces.
much. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah,